Hey, everybody, and welcome to the best show on earth. Currently getting ready to outpace Joe Rogan, the non-negotiating show, the non-negotiable show, where some things in life are non-negotiable.
And today we were planning to go over a never split the difference summary cheat sheet. I always like to say cheat sheet. I mean, it coming from my mouth, it's always fun. Cheat sheet. So
Yeah, and we got a special guest to throw in some thoughts. We're on page 2 of it, but Doug, none of this stuff is gonna catch you off guard. You've probably even read it already.
Oh yeah, I thank you for turning me on to it. By the way,
Man, it's been my game changer. I get goosebumps thinking about it. And it's not because I have this little fan blowing at my arm. I really do. So you can see my current read right now. Funny enough, is Doug's. He's like the property guy,
yes,
dude. Shit.
retail man, it's pretty deep.
They say retail's dead, but I don't think it'll ever go away.
Yeah, it's like everything else. Is like, what do you mean exactly by that? I think is the key, and that's where the opportunity is.
All right, let's work.
all right, and are you ready to start with no?
We're gonna start with the sec. Is that what it's starting with? Second
Yeah.
page.
We're starting with no, which is the biggest thing actually.
Yeah,
It's
wow,
been
it's a
a,
big
a
no.
game changer. A game changer for it's if it's like one of the tools you can take away today and start implementing in your day-to-day life. I mean, it's crazy what kind of responses you're going to get out there just trying to play with it. And the reason for that, because no is a very powerful word. And if you just look back, for example, at the kids, they just love saying no, right? It's just feels good for them to reject something, to stay in control, right? So it's literally by saying no, you kind of enforcing you need to stay in control, right? And that's what we're doing by saying no. So instead of sort of being apprehensive about hearing no, elicit it in a productive way. Make them twist their brains a little bit so that they are ready to say no, get it out of the way, and start negotiating, start the process of actually productive communication. What are your thoughts on that, guys?
Oh, you want?
Yeah, I think that was like a flash of inspiration when I came across it through the process here. And it boils down to autonomy. I think is the right way to think of it. And I think you're right on, Eugene. You're exactly right about this. Is if you ask a yes question, somebody's like they freeze up because they're like, "What exactly am I committing to?" But with a no question, they maintain that autonomy, and I think that's why it's so effective.
Yeah, yes is what are implications immediately? Okay, I'm saying yes. What's next? But when it's no, it's like no. And that startles people and makes them think.
And yes is nothing without how.
Hmm.
So the way I've been using and I see it, and maybe call me a Black Swan group zombie because of actually this is more of a Gen Camp. I don't go for yeses until the very end. It's all no's, 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 no's. If I hear a yes somewhere there, that means that man, I better tune in on that one. They should have said no. So start with no, just real quick. Need to feel in control, as Doug said. Get by saying no. Saying yes makes people defensive. If I hear no, what about this doesn't work for you? What would you need to make this work? It seems there's something here that bothers you. There are 3 types of yes. Counterfeit, yes as an escape route, want to say no. A confirmation, reflexive, response question, affirmation with no promise of action. Commitment, true agreement that leads to action. Trigger a no, it's now a bad time to talk. Might sometimes need to force counterpart into a no, intentionally mislabel an emotion. Ask a ridiculous question that can only be answered by no. Eugene, are you against reading the next one?
Possibly. uh, yeah, I mean, just few more pointers about the no-oriented questions. So just to give more examples.
For
So
sure.
one of the most common one would it be a ridiculous idea to do X, Y, Z, right? Is it a bad idea? Would you be against? Would you be opposed? Is on the softer side if you don't want to come out well too ridiculous, right? Would you be opposed to making a tea, for example, or would you be would it throw off your schedule if we schedule or if you make meeting at that time of the day? Would it be too much trouble to do X, Y, Z? So again, you have to use it strategically in different scenarios, but always like if you're looking for yes answer from your counterpart, flip it to no, and that will move you further along the lines of how you're going to kind of approach the conversation. Yeah, and that leads us to the email magic or actually text responses.
You just reminded me when you were mentioning your go-to no questions. I pulled up my notes, and I think everybody should have like their go-to no-oriented questions or go-to calibrated questions or go-to accusation audits. My favorite one to start any conversation is this a bad time to talk? I don't like hearing the one where they say, "Did I catch you at a bad time?" It's like, what are you, Ash? Are you trying to catch Pokemons or something? So my go-to is this a bad time? Email magic. That has worked. I had somebody try that for somebody that was not responding to them for a client, and they responded with a whole paragraph. Email magic. Have you guys used it or had someone use it?
Doug?
I haven't had occasion to run across that one yet, but um, have you given up on is another great one I've heard around that's
Yeah.
been used. Is really great.
It works. I've seen it work personally. I remember I told the guy, I'm like, "Hey, send this," and when he left, I was like, "Gosh, I hope that works," and it did. It did. All right. Well, that's right. Doug, you want to read? Do you have this pulled up?
I don't, and I did have a quick question for Eugene. Back on, I just want to double back. I just dawned on me, and I wanted to ask his experience on this. Eugene is working on some of the like elite cutting edge sales techniques, and I wanted to get your opinion on the yes set. I don't know if you recall the yes momentum, and comment on how different this is, because I do remember being trained in like, oh, hey, you know what you do? You just get a bunch of yeses, and then that makes them more likely to say yes.
Yeah, the yes type downs.
It
Get 'em
never did
say
work
yes
for
to
me.
something small. I got tricked in. I got tricked into buying something with that. By the way, I mean, look, Doug, you're American. Pretend you're a veteran, and I called you and I said, "Hey, do you?" And I know you're a veteran, by the way. Hey, do you support veterans, Doug?
Yes. Yes.
Do you want to make sure veterans are taken care of?
Yes.
Well, hey, do you want to sign up? We'll put your page in front of veterans for your business, $50 a month, and a lot of that goes to veterans. Do you want to do that right now?
Yes.
All right. Can you give me your credit card number?
Yes.
Man, and I canceled 2 months after. I was like, I didn't feel good about that.
Yeah. You're like,
Yeah, because saying yes makes people defensive. We just mentioned that.
Well, at that moment, it wasn't. I don't know. It was kind of hypnotic. Like I was like, yes,
Yep.
yeah, I love that. Gosh, you should help them out. I can help them out. My credit, yeah, I'll give you my credit card. Yeah, it was like a little hypnotic trance there. And I couldn't.
actually, it's funny you say that. That's exactly where I learned the technique from, was actually in the context of a hypnotherapy technique. And the problem here in this context, though, and I think this is exactly what you experienced, Dan, was eventually you wake up from the trance and you're like, wait a minute, I don't really want that.
Oh, jeez. Yeah. Yeah.
You
That's,
wake
that's
up
what
from it. And
it hit
that's
me
the
one
problem.
day. It hit me
Yeah.
one day. God dang.
Again, because it's defensive, like you defending your position and someone eliciting this defense mechanism in you. And after the fact, you feel like you've done something useful, but at the same time, there is this bitter aftertaste in your mouth. And looking back at this from different perspective, when you're not defensive, it's like, yeah, that's just a sort of manipulation tactic to get. And if it's done right, yes, this is a hypnotic suggestion. They kind of leading you down the path, only one path, to the one conclusion. You sort of guilt tripping yourself into a and helping someone. I think that could be defined as a guilt trip in a sense, and or ego trip. They're just gonna lock you up and lead you down the path towards the certain outcome, and you're not going to be happy about that, not in the long term. But coming back to Douglas' question, so the elite seven figure salespeople, they don't really use that much of a yes sort of oriented questions. It is more about the sales structure. There is a deeper psychology in that, is that understanding how people make decisions. And when you guide person to realizations by asking strategic questions at the right time, you help them realize that the problems are there and there are consequences of not solving these problems. And the deeper you dig during your sales conversation, the more they realize that shit, there is a real consequences of actually not doing anything. So their loss aversion kicks in. I mean, the emotional triggers kicks in, and then you are there literally. The funny thing is, 7-figure salespeople, they don't actually sell, they coach people. They coach into change, because sales is not about what you're doing. Really, you're selling change, and most of the cases, what you're doing, you're selling time or you're selling money. Like, whether they're gonna get more money or more time. So it's your job to actually coach the other person so that they feel empowered by making the right decision, by actually connecting the problems and consequences to the eliciting it and connecting it to the sales conversation. So yes oriented question, it has purpose, but it's not used by like best of the best at all. It might be useful in some context, but there is no emphasis on it.
Yeah, you don't really get to build any loss aversion with yeses. Because with a no, it's like so you're fine. You're fine with you reaching your goal 8 months from now instead of 2 months. No, I would rather reach it now. And at that point, price is not even a factor. It's more about the value. And I know, like, a lot of millionaires, a lot of them shop for value, not bargain. It's like, what would this do for me, especially in the long run? They don't really, you're not bargain people. Let's go, you guys agree, disagree? I don't know any millionaires, but I hear about them on YouTube.
That's right. Well, and I think that it's funny you say that. I think that I don't know if you guys have ever read the book Millionaire Next Door. If you haven't, I highly recommend it, because it changes your perspective on what you think a millionaire is and what you perceive them to be, and to what they actually are. And for me, blue collar background myself, I don't have a lot of exposure to millionaires other than a few work positions I've had historically. But in terms of internalizing that behavior and that thought process, especially in modeling them, I think that's exactly correct. Because I find myself this way too lately too. Is like my significant other, God bless her soul, she is very price sensitive and will try to spend negotiate $2 down to $1.
Is she buying off Wish.com?
That's right. So
I know from experience.
And I love her to pieces, but for me, it's all about velocity. And I think that's where millionaires are all about velocity. How do you maintain and keep your velocity going?
And they look at their purchases like little assets too. Like, everything to them is this an asset? Like,
Right.
It's a lighter, bro. Yeah, yeah, but this one's gonna last me 10 years and they'll probably resell for more than what I paid. Like, oh,
Right.
dang, okay.
There you go.
Oh, another level.
I have few good friends. Well, before that were millionaires. One of them is a Norwegian captain in the region sea. He owns like 2 airplanes here,
Oh,
and what I found, literally, they're the most, like, it's very easy to talk to them, and it doesn't
You're
mean
so
that they're,
curious, right?
well, they are open-minded. They are open-minded. They're looking at the opportunities, but also there is quite a bit of ego attached. And ego, not necessarily in a bad way, but they don't like to be like screwed over. They don't like to be manipulated. They don't like to be lied to. That's a big no-no too, because for them it feels like it's a waste of their time. It's not about money at all. It's a waste of time, and time is precious. So
Ooh.
in that regard, I suppose we all can learn a thing or two. Like if someone is just wasting your time, that's the big no-go.
Damn,
And
you just made my chest palpitate. Are we wasting your time here? We're all gonna be millionaires in this room, by the way.
eventually.
4 years, if not, I don't know what I'm gonna do.
as they say now, or in just a little bit.
So actually, coming back to no-oriented questions, and have you given up on this project? The phrase "given up" is a really, really strong phrase. And if you're thinking about it, who would give up on something? Like, just dive deep into the emotional dynamic, right? The people who would give up is the person who's
Depressed,
probably,
weak.
Right.
yeah, weakness, depression, like apathy. Like these are really, really bad
yeah.
things, right? So
Fear.
when you're going off of that, have you given up? Are you weak to consider this project? Like, are you completely like depressed on actually doing anything about this? People will say no, not at all. Like it's not, and you're gonna elicit any kind of, it elicits reactions, not even response. It elicits reactions, very strong reactions, and that's why people get response very fast in the emails or any sort of text-based communication. But throwing this around in real life, it could be really, it could fire back really quickly. Have
Yeah,
you given up on this?
there's some people that react and don't respond.
Yeah.
Oh. Let's summary to
Moving on.
triggered. That's right. That's right. Eugene. Oh no, wait, I skipped there's a that's right before the summary. Real quick, that's right. Good, that's right. Bad. Yes, you are right.
Yeah, again,
What's the
pointing
difference
to,
here, huh?
if you just look at the structure of the words very simplistically, that's right. It's pointing at something that is there, right? It's not pointing at you. It's pointing, like, if you take it as analogy of negotiation table, and you're sitting across each other and talking about different topics, the things that you're talking about are on the table, and you're discussing it, kind of looking at different perspectives. So when someone's saying that's right, they're showing you that whatever you feed them makes sense from their side of the table. But if you're saying you're right, they're saying it's it's not what I'm seeing, but I see what you see, so maybe you're right. It's already kind of a bad response, in the sense that it doesn't give you much, apart from letting you know that there's something you missing out. There's something that you're missing.
And they sound different too. That's right.
Different
Compared to, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Just stop talking, please. You're right. You're right. Yeah. You're right, man. Dude,
what if someone says,
that's
yeah,
right.
then you're right. Then you're right.
So I've heard that right there, it, when they say it with enthusiasm, that could be a that's right. That could be. So you have to listen to the tone, right? That's key. Tonality is paramount. Oh man, you're absolutely right. That's genius. I'd be like, okay, I think that's right. But if I'm hearing, oh man, dude, yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm not gonna get this job, man. You're right. No, you're right. I won't get accepted to that college. You're right.
Yeah.
Next one, summary to trigger. That's right. Yeah, how do we get this out of people, huh? Trigger that's right with a summary. One, effective pauses encourage the counterpart to keep talking. Two, minimal encouragers. Yes, okay, uh-huh, I see. Show I'm paying full attention. Mirroring. Listen and repeat back. Typically the last 2 to 3 words are the most key word. Labeling. Give feelings a name and identify with how they feel. Paraphrase. Repeat in my own words to show I'm really understanding. And finally, a summarize. Rearticulate meaning of what it said. Acknowledgement of the emotions. Paraphrasing plus labeling. I mean, that that little paragraph, there's so much.
So Dan, so far you've told me that you want to use minimal encouragers, encourage them to spill the beans, and as a result, you feel optimistic about showing tactical empathy.
Man, that's right. That was good. Yeah, I thought he was gonna leave out the emotion part. I'm like, he's paraphrasing. But yeah, I think that's the difference when you put in that emotion. It goes from a paraphrase to getting a that's right, labeling that emotion. Eugene, any of these? And look, we literally, I think every single one of these, we spend an hour or two once a month.
Yeah. I mean, the coolest thing is actually practicing summarizing what someone said, and you can do it in any context. If someone just talking they ass off and just being very verbal, and you just say, hold on a second, hold on a second, you said something important here, and try to summarize the last 30 seconds of the conversation and see if you can get that's right, or they will correct you. And by correcting, they're giving you more information or literally correcting you. And you say, okay, hold on, so, just so I understand your perspective. And you feed it back. Again, the summary is the corrections that you make. And that's when you hear that's right. And they will continue doing what they're doing. And so, what it does really, the way I'm kind of looking at negotiation, you kind of a neuroscientist talking with someone on the other side, and you pushing those buttons consciously to elicit certain neurochemical response. So in this case, when you're triggering that's right, what would be the dose? The dose stands for dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. So just a cool kind of abbreviation, dose. So you always letting them get the dose of positive good chemicals. So I think, if I'm not wrong, that's right, actually triggers oxytocin. It's a bonding hormone. It's like, yeah, you understand me. I hear you now. You hear me. That's great. Now we have this connection. Let's continue on. So yeah, that's right. And summaries are really powerful. And yeah, so dynamic silence, you cannot, or effective pauses, as they're calling it here, I suppose. It's talking to the same thing. Is something that you can kind of glue together. So you summarize. Okay, you mirror, you summarize, and you keep quiet to let them talk, to let them fill up the pauses. Now, labeling here is really important too, because it's kind of a wrapper. Like you summarize what you heard, and then you give it a label, so it looks like it's making you feel XYZ. And they're going to correct you, but it's also kind of a tie down of what they're feeling in that moment. And that's, again, I think, eliciting a more powerful response if you're doing it skillfully.
And I want to add that the summary, when you get a that's right, if you look at the behavioral change stairway, once you get the report, when you're in report and you get a that's right, you can now go into the next phase where you can actually ask for what you wanted if it hasn't been offered to you yet. Like, you shouldn't ask anybody for anything if you haven't got it that's right or summarized them. I've learned that, especially in real estate, when they feed you the clients and you just go show them places, you don't really take time to build rapport. a lot of those now getting on my nerves because I don't know who I'm dealing with. I haven't summarized them. I don't know their thoughts. I don't know anything. Getting it that's right is crucial. One that's always overlooked a lot is paraphrase. And I'm big on it because when I was in college, they made us paraphrase everything. It's it's basically what someone said in your own words. And we've been doing Doug knows you haven't been in that one, Eugene. You missed it. We've been using paraphrase as a pattern interrupt. You can pattern interrupt people when they're like talking a lot. You say, "Whoa, hold up! I just want to make sure I heard that part right." XYZ. Paraphrase what they said. It's good. I like it. Next one, never split the difference. Leads to a bad outcome for both sides. An example: one black plus one brown shoe. That is the quintessential of Joe Polish finding those L's and those halves. People that are easy, lucrative, and fun, and those that are hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating. And no, a bad deal, no deal, no deal is better than a bad deal. And that to me, when I see that's what sticks out. Don't split the difference. Don't settle for something that you're like, well, I guess I'll cooperate instead of I want to collaborate. There's a big difference there. Cooperation and collaboration. Like, well, I have to cooperate with the person.
Yeah, to giving this kind of a more open example is one black and one brown shoe. Like if husband and wife is arguing, we're going to this party, you got to put on black shoes. No, I want to put the brown shoe. Well, let's split the difference. On the left foot, you're going to put one black, and on the right is going to be one brown shoe. That's what compromise feels like. No one is happy.
I'll show you what collaboration looks like. They use the example of the two chefs needing one orange. And so what, they just cut it in half, each gets half. But if they talk, they'll realize one just only needs the peel and the other one needs the insides only. And now you get double. I love it. To me, I love it. The only, I would say what makes me a little different is I'll split the difference with you. I'll go on a bad deal with you like 3 to 4 times just so I can observe and learn. But then I'm gonna back away, usually when accusation audit or something. Eventually though, when I think to different levels, it's just gonna be, I don't feel it. Bye. That's it. Well, that's it.
Again, and this gets back down to velocity too, and something I love about elf versus half. When you have that attitude of abundance in your mindset, like the world is so huge, there are so many opportunities out there. You don't fight tooth and nail to keep a half. I mean, for God's sakes, we're not an HOA here, so we don't have to deal with this stuff.
I mean, but then again, I think at least each of us have interacted with 50% of the world population. Just kidding. Well, like how many people are you going to interact with in your life? Like what do they say? Like 0.01? It's minuscule. And so, yeah, it's very crucial to move fast. Abundance. Deadlines. Let's see, deadlines. Deadlines make people do impulsive things, resist the urge to rush as the deadline approaches, take advantage of the rush in others. Share my deadlines. Information symmetry is the worst for me. That's the last one. For me, I had to actually like search what the heck does that mean? Like, wait, do I share my deadlines or no? I found the answer. I'll let you boys take a guess. Do you share your deadlines with your counterpart?
And that
Right.
helps.
Now
I
we hear you.
Yeah.
Oh, we just heard you cut on right now. What did you say?
I say share your deadlines
Okay.
and elicit deadlines from the other side so that you can have a more productive conversation moving forward.
Doug, I see you nodding your head and spitting.
Well, I tell you, I can go really deep dive into like some big theory here in terms of information warfare, and John Boyd created the OODA loop: observe, orient, decide, act. And his theory is what you're trying to do, and he was a fighter pilot, and what he was trying to do is outturn you, basically. And so essentially, I think Boyd would say probably not, and that's where you want that information asymmetry. So that's the counterpoint to that, and I'm not sure, how you balance those, because I see Eugene's point, because it's like,
Yeah.
okay,
Is that
you're just
spilling
kind of-
beans, right? That's the big
Is it
question,
or
Doug. Are
isn't?
you spilling beans?
Yeah.
And do you want to spill those or no?
I think a deadline to me is more procedural, so I don't know that I consider that particularly spilling beans.
Ah.
Why you need that deadline, or why you're working toward that, or
Oh,
why,
yeah.
that's a different deal, and that's
Yeah.
why I wouldn't spill the why.
Then that's smart. Yeah, that's essentially what they said is give them your deadline, but you don't need to go into details
Yeah.
of it. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to figure
Go ahead.
out why are they asking you for deadline, or what's the context of this? Like, what's behind the question? And you have to address the concern first. Suppose we don't hit the deadlines, what's going to happen next, right? How does this deadline might affect this deal? Right? You
Loss
always have to
aversion.
kind of explore. Yeah, you have to explore what's behind that, because there is certain concern. Like if they're asking you about deadline, they are thinking about deadlines. They're thinking about their deadlines, right? So you have to understand what do they mean by deadline first and foremost. What effect it's going to have on the deal, and if it's going to affect your relationships. So yeah, I mean, from my side, I mean, once you explore what the deadline means, it's always good to have it on the table.
Good. Let's go to 3 uses of fair. Got defensive move. We just want what's fair. Emotionally rattled negotiators will raise their counteroffer. Correct response. Okay, I apologize. Let's stop everything and go back to where I started treating you unfairly, and we'll fix it. Next, nefarious accusation. We've given you a fair offer. Jab meant to distract my attention. Correct response. Fair. It seems like you're ready to provide the evidence that supports that. Positive. I want you to feel like you are being treated fairly at all times. So please stop me at any time if you feel I'm being unfair, and we'll address it. I kid you not, one time I was in the car with a fellow realtor, more successful than me. This guy had a higher BMW series than I do. Right. And he was on the phone with a client and he tells the other agent, yeah, man, it's a fair amount. It's a fair offer. And you get off the phone with him, and I looked at him and I go, hey, when you were telling him it's fair, were you kind of like saying F you? And he's like, looked at me, he goes, yeah, I was pretty much telling him that it ain't fair at all. But I want him to think it's fair, so I kept saying it. And it worked. The counterpart did take that low offer or whatnot. It does work. Fair. It's one of my favorite words. Eugene, are you using that word at MP at that 7th level? Is that even come up?
They don't use
Right.
fair. I haven't seen them. I mean, no, they don't use it strategically. They don't use it in questions. But it's actually, I had this idea. What if you use, would it be unfair? If you flip it in the no-oriented question, like how does that land?
Wow. Yeah, that sounded deadly to me, Eugene. I think that's an interesting tactic. That sounds good.
Yeah, it's good. I still like the old-fashioned use. Like, hey, let me know at what point what else? Another one I use instead of fair. Or please let me know. Like, tell me when I wronged you, when you felt wronged by me, and let me tell you, I will wrong you all day till you say stop.
Oh, but actually, the when someone's saying, well, we just want what's fair, or like that's fair, or that's not fair, or so this response, okay, I apologize, let's just stop everything and go back to the point where you felt like it was unfair for you and address that. That's a really disarming response. Like it's
Yes.
immediately puts them on your side, you on their side, and it just moves everything forward smoothly.
You
So
know,
that's
someone did it to me, and I was like, I can't think of that point. Let's move forward. It worked. Uh, moving
Boy,
forward.
and
Oh yeah.
imagine the alternative too. And this is probably the single one of the prime examples of why never split the difference, and the whole thing has been like a revelation to me, because a lot of the times I create my own resistance in life. So like when somebody say you're being unfair to me, I haven't been unfair to you. What are you talking about? You know, that instantaneous clash where when you say, wait a minute, okay, well, let's back up. And in the opposite, that response of backing up is so disarming to me. And it's talking about creating less resistance for yourself.
You think that would be a diffuse or a deflect?
To me, it's a diffuse.
See, I feel to me it's a deflect, but then again, it could be a combo of both. I mean, it does the same, right? Diffuse,
Yeah.
deflect.
Oh, the other thing actually for the fair, the response, like if someone said that seems fair, you could say, can you guide me through your decision-making process and how did you arrive at fair? So you're doing a couple of things here. You're eliciting decision-making response and then fair and connecting those two together. So you're gonna see immediately what's the reaction like. If it's a reaction, then it's probably attempt of manipulation. If it's a response, then now you kind of gonna get the thoughts behind what they mean by fair.
Wait. Are you saying reactive people are manipulating? More manipulative
It
than
could be
someone
used.
that responds?
Fair is a manipulative word. I say that
Right.
it's used more for manipulation
No, but
purposes more often than not.
I'm going off the cuff here. If you said something fascinating, if somebody is reacting to it, you said they might be trying to manipulate, whereas someone that responds with something like, "Let me know at what point you felt treated unfairly," it tells you something about your counterpart. Is that what you were inferring?
Well, it's not as black and white, of course. I mean, they might feel offended, they might feel wrong, and that's why they're throwing this word fair, and that could be as a reaction. You have to read into the situation
Because
and
sometimes I'm not
understand what
gonna
it
lie,
means.
like somebody says it like you said it right now. I might be tempted to be like, how can I make it up? What can I give you to make it better? And start giving yeah, that's good to be aware of that. Like, why are they reacting instead of responding?
Yeah.
I think that's genius, Eugene, because I think that that's a great way to elicit or identify within yourself. Okay, what's going on there with them? In that way, it's a acid test, if you will. If they continue to be responsive, then they are trying to emotionally manipulate. And the other way is like they legit had something, A plus B plus C equals D.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
you would want that
Really,
breakdown, right? Well, actually, it was on in paragraph 2 of the offer that was unfair right there. The normal rate is XYZ, and you're putting ABC. Yeah, it's good. Extreme anchor. Oh, this is one that we've seen at the pawn shop scenario.
oh yeah.
Yeah, one of the guys did it pretty good. He did the anchorman's bargaining, which is real advanced. Extreme anchor. Bend counterpart's reality by anchoring the starting point. 1. Before making an offer, emotionally anchor by saying how bad it will be. 2. Set an extreme anchor to make my real numbers seem reasonable. 3. Use a range to seem less aggressive. Number 3, I've been using that for a while from my mentor in real estate. Always says give a range. Let the client decide, but give them the range. Extreme anchor, that's, we see it in real estate lowball offers. But the first one though, before making an offer, emotionally anchored by saying how bad it would be.
I was gonna say, Dan, low ball offers are so 2010.
Oh yeah, you can't do that nowadays. No, it's not over 40K we're asking. Not interested.
Done.
No. Yeah, you're doing an appraisal? No.
Nah. What? Contingencies? What?
Oh jeez. Before making an offer, emotionally anchored by saying, yeah, you know, I okay, Eugene, I did watch some of your seventh level stuff, and I've also been, exposed in chat and seeing, and I see this one a lot, the extreme anchor before making emotionally anchored by saying how bad it would be. Because when you get someone to vision how bad it would be if they don't get this, then it's like, the price you suggest actually seems reasonable because the consequences outweighs the cost here. Let's just get this done ASAP.
Yeah, I mean, you have to prepare for the impact. You kind of helping them to, to kind of absorb the impact a little bit better by saying like, just something simple accusation audit will work for that. Like, the price is going to be ridiculous, right? You're probably going to feel like hang up on me like immediately after you hear the price.
Yeah.
You let it sit, and then you put down the price there. But at the same time, it could be what I heard the response from 7th level guys is like, what if you're talking to someone who doesn't care about the price? Is it going to distract them?
Oh.
So I was like, that's interesting, right? If you believe that your price is very expensive, and then you're saying, wow, it's going to sound ridiculous, right? And then it's like, that's just cheap, right? Your price is cheap, right? So maybe when you're not 100% confident that the price actually worth what you're offering, or you feel like that person might not be able to move through this, maybe that's a valid kind of a point to use like extreme anchor. But there is some other side to this. I haven't explored it just yet, and I'm apprehensive about using it right now in sales conversations. But there is there is something to it. Like, what if you're talking to someone that don't care about the price really, and they might think that the price would be cheap, and now what position are you putting yourself in by doing that? So what are your thoughts on that?
No, that makes sense. Why are you going to sell yourself short? Let someone dictate the value, and the worst that can happen is you can say, no man, that's way too low. I'm worth way more than that. Or if they present something that's like the most you've ever made, you're not going to be like, whoa dude, no one's ever paid me 40K for 2 hours. That's crazy. All right, I'll take it. Like,
Yeah, this reminds me of I think it was Jay Abraham that was telling the story. I can't remember where, but there was this jewelry store, and they had this god awful, gaudy piece of jewelry, and it wasn't selling. And this guy kept dropping the price. He's like, man, this thing, I can't do anything with it. And then he was talking to a friend of his, and his friend said, you know what, you need to double the price. And he's like, are you kidding me? This thing is terrible. And he's like, no, double the price and see what happens. And sure enough, he doubled the price to like some exorbitant amount. And sure enough, it sold. So it's that kind of counterproductive or counterintuitive thing that some things are viewed as more valuable because they're pricey, I guess.
And that leads us to our next one, my favorite one of all time, loss aversion. And that is something I see a lot in like those top sales things and just in general. Loss aversion. Oh, dang it. Eugene, you want to read loss aversion?
Yeah, I mean, people will make more risks to avoid a loss than realize a gain. And you got to make sure that your opponent sees there is something to lose by inaction. So consequences, right? What would be the consequences of them not taking the deal? And there are many ways of approaching loss aversion. It's in fact, it's elusive because sometimes it can backfire. Maybe Dan can speak to that too. Is it going to put you in an uncomfortable position if, like, let me ask you, how do you approach loss
Oh,
aversion?
like a Buddhist, bro. Like a stoic Buddhist. Because like, what is the root of suffering? Sufferance. What is it? It's attachment,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, and we talked about, Doug, about you can't hammer a nail to the air.
Yep.
There's nothing to nail it to. I am wholeheartedly loved by my wife, my baby, my 3 cats, father. I mean, I go on. There's like at least 20 people that if I lost everything, they would like bring me in like a little kitten and just cuddle me and take care of me and tell me everything is fine. So yeah, if this YouTube channel gets locked out, fine. If I lose my real estate license, whatever. If I lose this client, whatever. If I think it's taken away, I'm still good. And that to me has helped me with this tension I used to get.
Yeah.
I think I talked to you about it, Eugene.
Yeah.
And I'll be as quick as possible. I used to get attention when I would do a listing presentation, and I noticed it would come on when I was getting ready to ask for the listing. I was getting ready, oh, I'm gonna get this listing, make money, I'm gonna market it, I'm gonna do all this, get so excited, but then I get tensed up, and then I wouldn't get it, and I'm like messed up for like 2 days. So then I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go drive a cab, learn how to talk to people. Maybe it's that. Maybe I'm not. I just came from the military. I probably forgot how to talk to civilians. Go back to the table, comes back again. Oh man, like what is going on? And you know what it was? It's like a neediness. So if you got too much neediness, loss aversion is gonna affect you drastically. Like if you can smell it and sense it, like be careful with somebody that knows how to, like you said, loss aversion is so elusive. There's many ways to apply it. And it's, to me, it's the most game changer. And it's so small, like 2 sentences. This is the biggest thing on this, the loss aversion.
It's true.
Because people act faster to save their things than to go get something else. And it's almost like a scarcity mentality instead of abundance. Like if you have so much abundance, you have nothing to lose because there's way more out there. And so that to me has removed that commission breath. It allows me to do the work, not manipulate, none of that. It's organic. It feels good. Because if I'm not feeling good, if I feel like I'm trying to get you to sign something, like my body is gonna notify me. This ain't good, man. You ain't doing it the right way, man. You didn't tell them this other stuff. Like, shut up, man. I'm trying to get this listing. But now it's like, you know what? I can do an AA, and somehow they're like, wow, no one's ever said that to me. I don't want to lose a guy like this, such a straight shooter. Oh, was that loss aversion? Like loss aversion, when you apply these tools, it's kind of built into a lot of this stuff. To me, is the best. It bends my reality, which is the next one. But before we get there, boys, what's your thought on Dan's favorite tool out of all this whole thing?
Loss aversion. Yeah, so the way I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at it from the prism of an EPQ, there is a whole section in the sales conversation. That's where the money is made, actually. It's called consequence stage. Like you have to explore the failure. You have to. Otherwise, there is no loss aversion. There is no emotion attached to you failing it. Like there is a success and there is failure. It's different side of the same coin, really. And one of the ways they approaching it in sales, and that happens in a very specific sequence. So for example, for you real estate guys, I suppose, like if you're asking about, like, what is it that you're looking out for, like what kind of house or what kind of property? Well, this and this. Okay, why this and this and this? Well, it would be great to have a school next to it, right? So I can send kids. There is the shopping mall next to it. Okay, so you're kind of eliciting the good emotions, right? the positive things, the ideal, if you're future pacing them down that road. And if you're doing it long enough, what you do with loss aversion, you pull the rug right under them by asking them something to the effect of, well, what's going to happen if you don't find a new house, new property, and nothing changes in the 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years? And you say it like this in the slowest tone, like the most concerned tone as possible, and you just sit on it. And I've seen this in role plays with other guys. Some people just hang on that like 30 seconds for 1 minute. They considering the consequences. And then you follow up with like, they say, well, I cannot afford that. Well, are you willing to settle for that? Well, whose choice is that to settle for this or not? So there is a specific sequence that you guide person through to make them realize that the consequences are dire and the cost of inaction is real. And that's just another way of kind of going through loss aversion mechanisms to get your counterpart to actually think, what are they losing by not, making a deal with you?
For me, with the NEPQ, right now it's at, how long can you go making $4,000 a month instead of $40,000 a month? Not a single more month. It's getting painful. Yes, stuff is getting more expensive. You see the gas prices, geez, 40K a month. You won't think about that.
Yeah. Well, and I will say the whole thing that this, I didn't want to believe this for the longest time. I'm like always like,
What? I'm shocked, dude.
No, I didn't for the longest, and I mean a long time. I was like in this positive motivation. Hey, we got this huge goal. We're going to, yay, let's go. And I labored in my mind over this, and it turns out I finally reluctantly agreeing that this is like 5 to 7 times more motivational. There was an incredible book called Instant Influence by Michael Pantalon. And you've known the person, and I'm the prime example of this. I need to lose weight and I need to get serious about it yesterday. I've gone on for a couple of years now where I'm not taking it seriously enough. And like, how do you get me to make a change? And so in my example, am I going to be motivated? Hey man, you're going to look great in a new suit. You're going to look really good. Okay, that sounds great, right? Or how about this? Hey dude, if you keep going down this road,
you'll never get to date a supermodel.
You're never going to date a supermodel. Not only that, you're going to end up in the hospital and they're going to end up cutting off your feet because you're going to be diabetic, and they're going to start cutting body parts off.
Hey man,
now, which of
I'm
those
type
is more
2.
motivational?
Easy.
Right. Which of those is more motivational when you hear it, right? It's like, crap, I don't want to cut my ankle off. Please do not cut my ankle off. Don't cut me off at the ankle.
You know what? Another thing I like about it is because it's I wrote it in chat so I wouldn't forget. Pain aversion. I don't know where I read it from, but essentially, if you tell an employee, if you don't meet this quota, or a salesperson or something, if you don't meet this quota, you'll get fired. Now, if I told you, if you meet the quota, I'll give you a little bonus. And they done research on it, and the group that was told you'll get fired actually met and superseded their quota, as opposed to the ones, because they were comfortable. They were like, you know what? I'm not gonna get fired if I meet my quota. It's no big deal. And if I go above, I get a bonus. But the other ones are like, be fired? I better chop.
Well, and leave it to me to bring in some NLP stuff into this, but I've had experience where Tony Robbins basically said, hey, look, you have to get emotional velocity. And so, if you don't get emotional velocity from a positive goal, but you can get much more emotional velocity from a negative one. Oh man, I cannot imagine living that way. And it's basically not another day am I going to live like this. And once you get that kind of that, almost anger, to move yourself forward. Way more impactful and get you moving.
People are quick to avoid pain.
Well, you're running away from pain and towards pleasure. And this is always the dynamic that's present. And if you're just exploring the positive side of things, you're missing out on a lot of energy there, like untapped energy. Now, if you're only exploring the negative, you're going to constantly live in a fear and, running away from pain, and you're not going to have a clear goal in mind. What is it that you're striving towards to, right? So it's important to explore both aspects to have a rounder response, like even with employees. If you fail, we're going to fire you. Now let's explore the success. Like, what are we going to achieve here together by accomplishing this goal, right? How our life is going to be different than it is right now by us actually striving together as a team to achieve those goals, to achieve those milestones, right? So it has a specific sequences, like the loss aversion is very strong. So you have to explore, I guess, the vision first, like get really good at future pacing, like this can be great, motivations, it's going to be amazing, life-changing, yada yada yada. But then when you use the loss aversion, that's what's going to propel them forward to achieve this goal. So it's like, it's you're giving them the vision, and then you provide the fuel, the energy to move towards this goal or vision at much faster pace, because you're exploring the same processes. Success or failure is pretty much the same thing, just from the other side. And we always have to explore the failure because no one is immune from it.
Yeah, even
silence.
No, I'm thinking, no one's immune to the failure. Even damn it, why can't Richard Branson? I know some of his airline failed, Virgin Airlines, and gosh, you would think he's the one that can't fail at anything. Which is that good joke? What's the fastest way to be a millionaire?
Start with $1 billion and then start an airline.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Let's go with the last, best and final here. Bend their reality. Anchor their emotions. Start with an accusation audit, acknowledging all their fears. Anchor them in preparation for a loss. And number 2, let the other party suggest a price first, especially if neither party knows true market value. Consider alternatives if the other party is a shark or a rookie. 3, establish a bolstering range. Recall a similar deal. Range high so people will naturally want to satisfy the low end of my range. 4, pivot to non-monetary terms. Give things that are not important. Get things that are. Suggest ideas to stimulate brainstorming. 5, use odd numbers. Don't use round numbers. And 6, surprise with a gift. Generate reciprocity by giving unrelated surprise gifts. You know what? Now that I read this, the last one, I got a bone to pick. Because there's one type of negotiator that sees a gift as a ploy. And this is true. My wife considers herself an accommodator. I consider myself an assertive. And remember, our new landlord came by and brought us wine and chocolate. My wife was like, "Oh my gosh, they're so nice. Look at this. Wow, they brought us." And me, and an assertive, I'm in the corner, like sharpening my knife. I'm like, these guys are gonna raise our rent. I just know it. Don't touch the chocolate. I'm gonna mail it back to them.
Dare to say, Dan, you were looking for the string that was attached?
I was, yeah. I was looking. There's gotta be some. And you know what? And they were super nice.
What's the price of that?
They were so nice. They were so. But yeah, that and I think they do address it somewhere. Black Swan Group does address treat people how they want to be treated, not how you want to be treated, and that can be tough sometimes. Well, that's it. We gotten through page 1 and 2.
Yeah, and we already discussed Band-Aid reality, which is accusation audit. And I would like to kind of draw attention to use odd numbers. Why do you think that is, guys?
That comes from
Why odd
marketing,
numbers work?
right? I've seen that in market, and it does work. Every time I had a price drop to do, they said drop it $50. It was at 1750. I'm like, wait, no, it was at 1850, and I was like, wait, that's gonna be 1800. So then I had to make a choice. Do I put 1790 or do I put 1805? But I certainly was not going to put 1800. And they called me on it. They're like, and I go, hey, look, it feels like you guys don't trust my expertise here. No, 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 Dan, we do. No, we respect. Okay, well, there's a reason for a negative number. It works. Silence. The guy goes, oh, yeah, like the dollar store. 99 cents. You could just put $1, but 99 cents. They put 95 cents. I'm like, exactly. That's right. Fun fact, I like giving away that's right. It makes people feel good. That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
With the odd numbers, I think it stimulates deeper level of thinking. If you just throw in the round numbers, 20, 30, 40, 50, it's easy. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the numbers that we learn, very quickly. But if it's 17, 18, 19, that's not
Ooh, you
7,
really
it's
thought
not
about
9.
it. Like you really thought about the price. That must be non-negotiable.
Yeah. What's 100 divided by 5 versus what's 100 divided by 3?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it really works. It does. And yeah, it's always better to use odd numbers. You might use it strategically. It's gonna cost $20. Oh, I want 10. Well, the best I can do is 17.5, or like some odd number, right? And that triggers the thinking. Is like, why 17.5, right? Like, what's okay? He must be at the end of his line, right? And that's the thought process, and that's how we use it strategically to get the price that we want, or even higher price, by anchoring a very high price range and then negotiating the terms in your favor. Yeah.
Well, let's see when we'll get to page 3. I'm gonna hit the pause on the record.